Whoa, hang on a second. What are the frog hotels doing over here? These are the frog hotels, right? They were. And you can see one of them's actually catastrophically failed. So what we're going to do is to find out why these are no good for use right now. These are the ex-frog hotels, and what we've got is something that will replace them and kind of be more fit for purpose. So this was a good design, a good kind of experiment to see how far we could go with using pot planters as frog hotels and ponds, but it didn't really kind of work out. So in this video we're going to find out what happened, why, and what I've done to replace it, and see if we can kind of go on with the whole ethos of making a pond and a frog hotel out of one bit of kit, or in this case two. So this one's going to be a deep dive, guys, so strap in, there's going to be plenty to come. Yeah, g'day frog lovers, you are back again with the big fella. So I wanted to start off this video by asking you guys, the audience, a question. What would you have as your perfect habitat for a frog hotel? Bearing in mind you need to consider three things: shelter, water and light. Those are the three crucial things that any frog needs to have for a viable habitat. When I first saw one of these at a plant nursery years and years back, what I first thought was a bit of a joke turned out to be quite a rabbit hole. So the normal thing you would do is basically start off with a pot, some rocks, some pipes, a bit of water and some light, and yeah, you've got yourself a basic frog hotel. That's kind of what it all boils down to. Maybe some greenery to throw in there for a bit more of a natural feel. But over time you realize, okay, well, maybe they can do a little bit better. Now bear in mind, frogs are not that picky when it comes to throwing stuff together for a habitat. You know, they'll make a habitat out of pretty much anything that we build. So a house, drains, downpipes, water tanks, toilet systems, basins, baths, you name it. It doesn't really have to be something that we built, it's just something that is actually there and they can access. So if you had more of a budget to play with and you wanted to actually build something that the frogs could really go to town in, this is what I really wanted to do with the last lot of frog hotel planters that I made, but it didn't really work out the way I wanted it to, and I wanted to try and improve it. So what I did was get myself some other planters, something that is larger in the base, like got a larger area to play with. So first of all, guys, just a heads up, this is a build/DIY type of video. I don't usually put in a montage of cute frogs or anything like that into these videos, but I will be interspersing it with that kind of content. But if you're not into a DIY type of video, then now's your opportunity to click off. But I encourage you to stick around because you probably will learn something very valuable. The hard work and perseverance usually pays off, and what you're going to find is that kind of determination and particularly doggedness comes through in this video, because I just wanted to get the project finished. Okay guys, so to get started with this, I'm going to have to take you back to earlier on in the year, back when I first noticed there was something wrong with these planters, or one of the planters in particular. So I don't know if you can see it all that well, but the reason why I want to change over these planters is because this one has got a bit of a wet spot around the bottom. These two are completely dry around the bottom here. So what's happened is this one, I've tried to patch it up as best I can, but it's still fairly obvious where the silicon is, and it's still got that leak, and that's where all the water's coming from. What I had to do was to go along and try to rectify this as best I could, and that involved a little bit of a search. So the original idea was to try and find a couple of planters that were available locally through a bit of a search, and as you can see, it was intended to try and find something that was about 38 centimeters square or cubic. I didn't really find all that much in the way of success until I got a tip-off online. Someone on Facebook was actually recommending a place up north called Pecco's Pots, and apparently they had pretty much the ideal thing that I was looking for. So I got onto them and asked them about it, and they said, yeah, we've got some, come up and have a look. So I eventually found a couple of planters that were the suitable size, so now I had a base from which to work, and so I took them back home and started working on them. So after going up north to get these new planters and bringing them back down here, I've come to realise that they're just a little bit bigger than the original ones. There's no real issue with that. They were about 38 centimetres square, as you can see, caved in at the bottom down there a little bit. So the idea is to replace everything inside these into here. Now as you can see, these are about 40 centimeters cubed, and they've got this kind of a lip around the inside, which I wasn't really counting on, but I don't think it's going to make much of a difference. When you look inside, they're what's called GRC, or glass reinforced crete, or concrete, or cement. I'm not sure exactly how it all works, but they're very light, they're very strong. There's only one little hole at the bottom that needs to be patched up. As you can see from the latest damage that we've had from this rain, there's a lot of algae just kind of crept in, which happens after every rain that we get. And it's usually caused by sun. Now I've had the sunshade over these things the whole time, and it still comes up green, so there's no real fix for it. As far as these Canna lilies go, they are really starting to outgrow their pots. What I'm going to do is to replant them and kind of trim back just a bit. I don't really know exactly what I'm going to be doing, but that's where I need a bit of horticultural help. If anyone can advise me on what to do, maybe I'll correct what I've done in the next video. It's been going great guns. I mean, it's supposed to be moved out from its pot when it's originally put in there, but it was only going to fit in there either side of those two larger pipes. These two larger salmon ones, they're going to be repotted. Well, there go those plans, but at least the frogs are having a good time.
Eventually.
Okay, so I was intending to put these Canna lilies back into the planters as is, but I've realised I've made a bit of a crucial error here. When I've repotted them, I've put them back in with potting mix instead of river sand. Now, you don't really put potting mix back in with plants that are going to be saturated in water. So what you do is you put them in river sand instead. Now, I kind of made a boo-boo there, so I'm going to try and get it remedied right now. So now, because of all the rain that we've had recently, most of the potting mix had actually clumped itself to the root ball of the Canna lily, and I've just had to remove it just loosely off into this old pot. I'm going to reuse that somewhere else, probably in the bottom of the new planters. So I've gotten as much as I can off the plant, and what I'm going to do now is fill that up with river sand, but the occasional bit of potting mix on top, just the loose stuff, won't really hurt it. So we're going to just move forward with that. Now, potting mix might be okay if you're going to put them into the earth, but when you're going to put them into water and you're going to put river sand around them, you need them to be contained fully within the pot. And what happens with river sand, it'll just flow out the bottom with those holes there. So what we need to do is grab some newspaper, preferably the racing section of the local rag, wrap up around the outside of the plant and stop the sand from flowing out. So that's what we're going to do. Okay, so there is one Canna lily mostly done. Now, as I've mentioned before, I'm not a horticulturalist, but crucially down the bottom, you can see just newspaper, which will absorb the water and help the plant get all its nutrients through the new medium, which is river sand. So yeah, that's how you do it when you put them in water. This is just replicating what I've seen done at a local aquarium place that actually sold me some water plants back in the day. I actually deconstructed the whole lot and put it all back together in a previous video, so that's how I remembered how to do it.
Tomorrow.
Yay, the sun's out! So while the weather's good, what I'm going to be doing is to plug up these holes in the new planters. I've got myself aquarium silicone sealant right there, and fortunately I managed to hang on to these old windows that I used to seal up the holes on the old planters. So here, as you can see, there is only one hole to plug up, and it's not that thick. I mean, it's probably maybe about 1.5 2 millimeters thick. It's going to take a little bit more finesse. You can't just dob the silicone in there. These are a fair bit thinner and a fair bit lighter than the pottery planters, because these are mostly fiberglass. And like last time, I've got this greaseproof paper or baking paper to help promote the non-adhesion of silicone to the glass, or whatever it actually comes in contact with. But even that has its limitations. From the last video which I did on this, it gives you some good proof that this silicone will stick to just about anything. So what we're going to do is to do something similar to what we did last time, and just hope it comes off with a minimum of fuss. So it's greaseproof paper down over the hole first, then the window over the top just to seal it in, and push it down on the edges, One take. Look at that. Alright, and that should give a fair bit of adhesion. It's only fairly smooth, you know, kind of fiberglass. So what we're going to do is to flip this over and apply the silicone. Okay, so it is another day and we've got the silicone fairly well dried. I've already given it a touch dry feel and it's set pretty well. So what we're going to do is remove these windows at the back. So what I've done on the first one is just liberated the bits of tape around the outside. So I've taken off this edge, remove the window, and here's the baking paper still there, and that will still be attached. Alright, so after very carefully removing the baking paper here, so what we've got here's the plug. Very smooth to the touch, flat and level, but what I'm going to do, to be extra cautious, I'm going to put another bit of a smear over the top. As you can see down there, you can see the extra bit of silicone's already there. We've got the inside, it's already gone off and it's nicely skinned. So what I will be doing is a wet test on this just to see if there are any leaks. Alright, so the second one is removed and I almost lost the plug on this one altogether because the baking paper didn't want to remove as well as the other one did. So yeah, it wanted to pull out, and this in the end not quite as flush, there's a bit of a dip there. So I'm going to have to be really careful about resealing that one. So like I said, with a little bit more silicone, I should be able to get the underside of these bases nice and flat and waterproof. I'll get them smoothed over with some more silicone and we'll do a wet test on them. A lot of pressure is needed to get this stuff out. That's why the shaking. What I'm going to do is kind of smooth that out with that bit of cardboard. Now time for a water tightness test, and this part I haven't really been looking forward to.
"20 minutes later."
Okay, water's still inside, we've got no leaks anywhere, and when you flip them over there is not even a trace of seepage. So I'm going to call that a win, and we'll move on to the next phase. So now the first hotel is evacuated. Our pipes need a little bit of work. I've got an idea to kind of put a stronger hose on them and to try and clean off the algae and whatever's built up on them. If that doesn't work and the paint starts coming off, then they're going to get a repaint. That's okay. Our tenants were not too thrilled about being moved over. They're all kind of in here in some packed hotel rooms, but that's okay. They kind of like it that way. These 65mm pipes at the back here, one of them that I shook out before had about 4 frogs in there, and they're all really tightly packed at the bottom of the pipe. Now this gives further validation to the fact that what I said before about frogs having to absorb water during hot days, they have to kind of be at the bottom of the pipes to saturate themselves enough to give their skin enough to hydrate. So this hotel in particular will get cleaned out in due course, probably after the other one, but at the moment it's kind of serving as emergency accommodation for all the other frogs. So it seems that it's cleaned up fairly well, especially when you use just a hose and a bottle brush just to kind of agitate the stuff on the outside, which was fairly loose, and basically it hasn't done all that much to the paint. What you see right now, that's pretty much been done by the rocks as it's been kind of moving around inside the planters most of the summer. I'm kind of happy to leave it as it is. They've been cleaned out and ready to go into the new planters. The idea that I have for these new planters goes something like this. These are currently sitting at the base level of the planter right now, so nothing underneath them, but they will be propped up on bricks and stones, kind of like they were in the last one. So these pipes are going to raise up a little bit, and so is the plant. So that's what I want to do, is to kind of bring it up about maybe 150mm, about 6 inches, and let everything kind of sit as it is, and put the water pump somewhere in the middle. So this is by no means a final design. This has got a little bit of fiddling around, so I can kind of move things around if I wanted to, but this is the layout that I was trying to go for. It's kind of how I see it when it's finished. Don't you just love it? You go outside, you try to get your project started up, and Mother Nature just says nope to your project once again. So I'm gonna have to wait till tomorrow now. Sorry guys.
3 weeks later.
Okay, so the idea behind these new planters is to make them so that they are drainable. So what we're going to do is put in a drain hole kind of around here somewhere. So they're going to have the same substrate type of thing as we already have with the old planters, and we're going to have rock above that, and then pipes and the bricks, yeah, everything's going to be kind of as is, but we're going to have a tap on the outside to actually drain out the water and make it a little bit more serviceable, which is what I should have done in the first place. Okay, so the reason why these planters aren't drainable is because they were not made to be a frog hotel, and they weren't made to hold a lot of water. If they were, then these plug holes which I've made up here out of silicon would not be there. They'd be just a solid base. So what I've done, and this is what I mean about the weather conditions being so sporadic, but had to interrupt myself mid-sentence, but wow, double rainbow. Okay, wasn't expecting that. I'm trying to get what I can done while the weather's good, and while we've got sporadic conditions like this, like sometimes sunny, sometimes windy, sometimes rainy, then it makes things a little bit difficult to get done in a timely manner, and that's why this content's taking so long to get out. But hey, appreciate the view while it's still there. Look at that. So like I was trying to say before rain interrupted play, what I wanted to do was make some holes in the planter, but not the ceramic ones. Now, the fact is, I've had to make these plugs for the base of the planter as it is, so that it comes with holes from wherever it's been made. Now what I need to do to make it watertight is to make a hole and then silicon, say, the outside of it. Now, to put a tap in these into ceramic, if you don't have the proper tools for the job or the expertise for it, then basically what you're going to do is make a potentially big crack where you don't want to. But I wanted to make a drain hole in something that was more made for it. These new GRC planters that I've got, which are a lot more square and roomy than these ones, will be okay to be modified, I would say, because the walls are so thin. Yeah, there's not very much room to go wrong. And now what I have here is a recent delivery, which is these taps, which are coming from God knows where, probably somewhere in China. What you'll notice about them is that they have these little O-rings here. They're about the same size diameter as the outside face of this. You're going to stretch those O-rings over the thread. They're not going to have very much consistency there. So what I wanted to do is to kind of eliminate those O-rings altogether and put them in via silicon. We've got the appropriate stuff for the job. We've got the aquarium silicon, which is really, really thick, but we need to have a hole saw and some other hardware to go along with it, so we'll just go through that. Now the stuff we're going to need for this job is pretty simple. We've got some hole saws here, which you can get down at most hardware stores. It's got the bits inside there to attach to the drill. We've got the drill over here. We've got masks. Now this is important because when you're going to go through these GRC planters, what you're going to do is go through cement, which is going to stir up cement fibres, as well as glass fibres in the fiberglass. So you don't want to breathe in any of that stuff. So this one I've had for years. The elastics are shagged on it, so I won't be using that. This will be the proper one that you would use. But failing that, I'm going to be using this instead. But it's only a short drilling process because it's only a small hole, and we're going to be using that only for a short time frame. So this will be just enough for the job. And we've got aquarium silicon sealant and the taps, of course. So we've got everything we need, and we'll get into it and see how we go. So these planters are actually made of what's called GRC, which is glass fiber reinforced concrete, or what we call fiberglass reinforced concrete. So these things are extremely thin, extremely light, but they're strong at the same time. Now, coming from a bit of a different background here, a bit different perspective, I used to work in concrete years ago. Now, when you look at the consistency of this stuff, not really sure where exactly the concrete is applied. I mean, yes, it's stiff, yes, it's very strong. It seems like it's more cement, just not really concrete, because concrete has an aggregate or a rock type of material put into the mix, and this stuff is only about 3 millimeters thick around the sides and the bottom. So if there's anything that's been put in there as far as concrete, it's got to be at the top, because that's the only place where you can actually put concrete aggregate, as well as your sand, your limestone. These things are fairly strong, so we're about to find out what these planters can handle. Now, I'm just going to do a quick experiment before we get started, just a bit of a reality check here. I wanted to find out how much these actually weigh. I guessed it would probably be around maybe 5 or 6 kilos. I'm usually fairly accurate with that. The old one, they probably weigh around about considerably more, maybe about 2 or 3 times more. So what I wanted to do was use this manual scale here to actually pick this up and see just what this would weigh before it's actually got anything in there. So we're going to find that out right now. So here we go. Just stick this under the lip. That's off the ground, about 6.5 kilos. And now for the other pot, I have these scales, so I've got a bit of towel across there just to protect the face. Here we have the other pot, just been sitting out there in the rain. Let's give this away and find out. I don't know if you can see that, but it actually says 17.8 kilos. That's a beefy bit of kit. Because of the way the blue planter is shaped, you can't really use it effectively. That's one of the things I took into account before I actually started moving the old frog hotels over to the planters. So this one you can do a lot more with. You can modify it a fair bit more, and it's a lot lighter. Now what we're going to do is get some measurements and see if we can put the theory into practice. What I'm going to do is have the substrate the same way I did on the planters, probably place a first layer of rocks above that. Now the tap is going to be above those rocks, so I'm guessing maybe about 3 inches. So on a broader scope, here is your 76 mil, the 3 inches, and that is the rest of the planter. So the tap is going to be down fairly low, and that's about as high as it needs to be, really. All the measurements have been done, and what I just realized is that this planter isn't exactly 40 centimeters across, it's actually 44 or close enough to it. The measurements that they sell you on one of these is 40 centimeters at the opening or the orifice, and 44 is roughly where we come to for the overall width and length. So what we're going to do is measure off that and get an approximate midpoint, measure up about another 76 millimeters or 3 inches, and go for a cut. No turning back. Okay, well, that confirms fiberglass and cement. Looks like cement powder as well. I'm not so sure on concrete. I would say more cement than anything else. No going back now. Okay folks, so what I've done is I've removed the hole saw off the drill bit. As you can see here, if I can get it to focus right, that hole saw is totally munted. That shows you what the planter box was actually made of. I can run my fingers around these edges here and they're almost smooth. Look like they've been filed smooth by cement or whatever it was inside the planter box. What we've got to do now is go and get another hole saw, 25 mil I think it is. Hopefully we won't have to destroy that. Sorry about the mask, but the reason why I've actually done this undersized, or about the same size as this tap without the nut on it. So if I put this on right now, it's about exactly the same size, so it's not quite big enough. So what I want to do now is use our old friend, the Dremel. Change the head on, of course, but change this over for a sanding bit. Give it a bit of a reaming out and get it to sit just snugly inside so I can put some silicone on it. First blow all the dust off and all the detritus. Get it to sit inside, put some silicone on the front and the back, get the nut on it and let it dry. It's almost the right size, just needs a little bit of tapping out. Like that. Perfect. And just for shiggles, the thickness of the wall, depending on which face you look at, because it's rippled, the finish isn't exactly constant. It's about 3 to 4 millimeters, so not very thick at all. Right, now it's been siliconed up, and it took quite some effort to get this stuff around the thread. So I'm just going to make it sit inside, just let it dry there. Okay, and that is how it's going to set. So basically what I've done is pushed it home and got it to sit in there nice and snug, and just ran my finger around the outside of where all the silicone was. It should be just enough to make it hold without any leaks, and the inside has the remains of the silicone just kind of sitting around the thread, making a nice little seal between the inside wall and the threads. And when you're finished running your finger around the outside of the tap with a bead of silicone, what you do is you clean them off with some mineral turpentine, or terps as we call it, into a rag, and just wipe your fingers on it like that. That's enough to loosen up the silicone. It provides a good enough clean until you actually get to wash your hands.
Later.
Okay, so a little while later, and this seems to have cured up and dried off all right. So what we're going to do now is give it a wet test and see how watertight it is. Alright, so a couple of minutes later, and we've got enough water in there to test if it's all good. Ignore the puddle down here, I had the tap turned on instead of off. We'll leave this here and see how she goes.
1 hour later.
No water's been lost. Got a bit of a slosh mark up the side, but that's about it. And out the side here, clean and dry. So I'm quite happy with that. That's another win. So now the next step will be to empty this out and get the substrate going in, just like we got the old planters. So we're going to have some dirt, crushed leaves and river sand. So that'll be the next job. Alright, now we're putting this potting mix with some freshly crushed eucalyptus leaves, or gum leaves. And what we're going to do is to put pretty much that whole mix inside of here. Now that's going to cover the bottom layer, and after that we're going to put some river sand on top of it, and I think it's probably going to come up to just underneath where that drain hole is, and that should give us enough room to put some rocks that go right up underneath it, and we should be right, I think. Now I wanted to show you guys this because this is God's honest truth, what's actually come out of a bag of potting mix. Half a pen. Now tell me exactly how that's going to help your plants grow. Now that's the soil component covering the bottom, well, just barely, but it's enough to do the job for a substrate. Next job is to put this stuff in there, and that'll complete the substrate base just like we had on the last planters. That's the sand layer put in, and we're ready for the rocks, and I think we've got just enough left over from this nearly bottomless tub of sand to do the last planter. So now with this next part, I'm going to take these rocks which I took out of the other planter and kind of put them in here, but what I need to do first, just a little bit of forward planning, is to take them off the milk crates down here. So what I'm going to do is put them on the ground so they can be more easily moved. So I'm not going to be lugging around 25 kilos of planter. Actually, before we get started, what we're going to do is to put the bricks down on top of the sand, and then put the rocks around that. So we almost forgot about these. Split these ones in half as well, so I can put the pipes on top of them and have a more stable base to mount everything onto. And we're going to have the plant put in the back, and the pipes kind of put around on the inside. I'm not exactly sure what the final plan with that is. One hammer and cold chisel later, and we've got some freshly split bricks, and we can put the pipes on top of them. Now the way I've sorted these out requires just a little bit of vision, a bit of creative insight. So what I've done is to try and kind of mimic the way the pipes have been set up in the other planter, but instead what I've done is put them onto bits of brick at the bottom here. So you've still got the sand that you can see at the bottom. On the plant, we need to have a bit of height. So I've double stacked the bricks there. Down the bottom here, I'm going to put some stones, as I said, underneath that spout there, only a layer or so, and then kind of gradually build them up back toward the plant. Okay, so that wants to sit there like that. Now, what's going to be enough to stop it from moving about? Okay, it just wants to kind of free float there. If I just fill it up with water and kind of surround it with some of those bigger rocks, so I need to find out what to do and how best to go about it, and I'll come back with a bit of an update on what I think is the best way forward. So even though I didn't say it on camera at the time, it was at this point that I found myself in a conundrum. I was too deep into the project to bail out, and I had no idea what to do to keep the pipes from moving about so easily. So what do you do when you're in a fix like this? Well, I tend to fall back on two reliable constants: past experience and the inevitable trip to Bunnings. G'day guys, if you've made it this far into the video then congratulations, but I'm sorry you've only reached the halfway point. So this has taken a lot longer and a lot more resources than I was planning. So as you've seen so far, this build takes many twists and turns and we're not really completed yet. The fun stuff is just about to happen. So the second part of the video is in the description as well as up there. Now to be honest, I wasn't really planning on making a video this long. I mean, I've left probably about 2 hours of uncut footage on the floor, and it just didn't really feel like it was appropriate to actually put it in there because it was just so damn long. And that's what you get when you have 5 months of build and probably about 6 months worth of rain and God knows how many circumstances that come up, and you're just trying to fit it all in. And a lot of things have happened in the last 5 months as well as the build for the frog hotels. All right, so I know I've said it before, but this video is all about timing. In the Southern Hemisphere, in Australia, it's winter. And in the Northern Hemisphere it's summer, and this is when all your frogs are out, and this is why you're seeing the content right now. I've included more links in the description as well as to what's been going on the last few months, including a new website. It's kind of designed as a portfolio website, and it's got most of the things that I've done in the past, places that I've been, adventures that I've been on, and stuff that I've shot. It's bfvmedia.com.au. It's worth a bit of a read, so you'll probably spend about half an hour's worth of reading there. Check it out. So thanks very much for watching, guys. Part 2 is now up, and I'll see you over there.